The Milwaukee Brewers have made a very sneaky signing going out here and making a move early on in this offseason, which is going to have a pretty big impact going into next year. We're going to be breaking that down, as well as going over a report coming out from the MLB, breaking down what the Brewers pitching is going to look like next year, bearing some major moves. And we have a lot to touch on this because a lot of the pitching coming down to next season is really going to be determined as to what happens over the next couple of months. And like I said, we have a lot to break down here in today's video. So before we do jump into it, though, I ask you one favor, and that's if you haven't already, be sure to hit the sub button. Join me here on the channel. We're covering everything Milwaukee Brewers, and you won't want to miss it. We have a lot of stuff coming over throughout this offseason, especially with a lot of rumors and reports about moves already being made. So, like I said, we're going to jump into those here in a couple of weeks when things get going after the World Series, but right now we have a lot of stuff to touch on. So, let's jump straight into this. And I first wanted to go over the move the Milwaukee Brewers have made, going and claiming off of waivers Sammy Peralta. Now, he is a very interesting player when it does come down to it. Not a major name, not a huge name, but that is exactly what the Milwaukee Brewers like. And when we come down to take a look at him, and we're going to do that here, break down what we've seen from him in the past throughout his MLB career, but also why the Brewers went out and got him. And going into his full-on baseball savant right here, I want to pull this up, go over. Has not had enough to show his percentiles in the MLB for 2025. However, he's a very interesting player because when you go and look at his 23, 24, and 25 seasons, at 27 years old, he necessarily hasn't had the greatest career thus far. Last year was not the best year for him, 7.59 ERA, but we know that the Brewers are able to come out here, change up some pitchers, change up some players, and what they've done in the past really does not matter for what they can do in the future with this team. And I think that coming into this, we've seen a lot of interesting stuff throughout the pitching so far, through a lot of players' careers already, and looking at what they've done, I think there's a lot of positive to come from really any move that the Brewers make on the pitching side of things. And Chris Hook is shown to be able to really go out and do anything for a lot of players, make things work, which is a major thing coming into this. But one thing about Sammy Peralta that I really like, and I think the Brewers were looking at as well, is that his pitch selection is very different. We're going to touch on that, as well as something that you guys know I like about specific pitchers, which is going to have a really big impact to make these pitches better. But going throughout it, he's not a big fastball guy, only 7% of the time, and having that as a percentage in, the way that he's going to face batters, the way that this Brewers team is looking at pitchers which dominate the fastball, use the fastball quite a bit, compared to some that love their movement, this is that guy. As you see there, his fastball velo is only a second percentile, throws it about 87, 89 miles an hour. But when you're going through the rest of his stuff, slider, curveball, changeup, splitter, a slurve. There's a lot of different things that he throws, a sweeper, throughout his kind of repertoire against righties and lefties, that he's going to have a very interesting kind of pathway to this team next year and how this team is really going to go about it. Now, as you know, I'm very interested and I'm a big fan of the different style that pitchers have on their arm angle. And going in through his Sammy Peralta's, he is 12% in a 12 degree in 23, 24, and also in 25, went up a bit to a 16 degree arm angle. But when you're having the pitch repertoire that he does, the mix that he has with these specific arm angles, things are very interesting on that front, which is able to bring these pitches into a kind of different level. We've seen it with some of the Rogers, some of the other different, pitchers throughout the MLB who a nasty sidearm or fully, submarine. Their stuff is absolutely nasty, and they don't even use a fastball and are able to hold hold batters down to a very difficult position, which is something that I'm excited to see how we see Sammy Peralta really able to develop that in with this team. And also, we know the Brewers do have quite a few different pitchers who are of this style, and having a big group of these guys help quite a bit with what the future will hold for not just them, but also how things can alter their pitching styles for the best. And I want to know what you guys have to think about this. If it'll be something that we have to wait for, if it's something that right away the Brewers are going to try and make active, I'm curious to see, because Sammy Peralta, although he may not make an impact at this very moment, it certainly could be an option for next year to have him jump into a bigger role than what we saw him have, at least this year and going forward. So let me know what you think about that, but we do have to move on as well. And on the same pitching topic, we know there's been a bit of an idea now going into the offseason where we don't know what the starters next season are going to look like. All sorts of rumors about Freddy Peralta, Quinn Priester jumping up here, being with number 2 starters, what's going to look like, having Jose Quintana and Brandon Woodruff potentially be gone from this team. There's so many options, and a recent article has come out and kind of I put the idea